This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so Burrs, you had the first bank reconciliation. Are there any questions on bank reconciliation?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Okay, we'll work the first one for us.
Okay, so the balance per the books for my personal books is 22,500.
So your balance per the books is 22,500.
Mm-hmm.
What happened here? Wait
And
a minute.
then,
How did it jump all the way down there? We get it back up here where it's supposed to be. Your balance per the books is 22,500.
mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna add my interest of $1,000,
Okay. So the interest is 1,000.
and then less my service charge is $500,
Service charge is 500.
and so my correct balance should be 2,300.
23,000.
23,000. Sorry, yeah,
Okay.
23,000. My bank balance is 25,000, plus my deposits of 3,000,
3,000.
and then it's less my outstanding checks of 5,000.
That leaves it with a correct balance of what?
23,000.
And what journal entries are you required to make?
I have to do the type. I think it's type 2 for the cash and the interest income.
Okay, and your interest was 1,000. Okay.
Mhm.
What's your other journal entry? What is the other journal entry that has not been made?
Okay, that's all I had was my
Now you got this
mhm.
service charge. You don't have that recorded
Oh,
yet.
miscellaneous. Miscellaneous. Is it miscellaneous?
So you debit, miscellaneous expense, and credit
Five.
cash.
Yes, credit
So that's
cash.
the thing in terms of the bank reconciliation. Anything that you got in this company analysis, which you have not recorded, you got to record it.
Okay.
And the bank analysis, if you recorded your deposit and you recorded the checks you've written, that's occurred. Do we see that now?
Yes.
Okay,
I have it in my
Jasmine,
Okay. For my balance per books is 29,500.
and 500.
Plus the interest income is 2,000. Less the service charge is 500. And then the correct balance for the company analysis is 31,000.
Okay.
For the bank analysis, um, my balance is 30,000 plus the deposits in transit is 4,000. Less outstanding checks is $3,000, and then the correct balance for that is 31,000 as well.
Okay.
And for my journal entries, I have debit cash 2,000 and credit interest income 2,000, and then
Okay.
miscellaneous expenses 500, and then I credit cash 500.
Okay. So that's a simple one where everything is laid out for you. Suppose you had a more comprehensive one where you can see JHJ Roan Company deposits started by depositing 100,000 in the bank. Then it made deposits weekly of 140,000. So 20, 30, 40, and 50. So it had 100, 20, 30, 40, and 50. And it wrote these checks. Okay. So the checkbook showed the initial deposit, those weekly deposits, checks written. The ending checkbook balance was 119,000. See that? 100 plus 140 deposits, less checks written, ending balance 119. Any questions? The bank statement comes in and it shows the 100,000. It shows the 20 and the 30 and the 38. Well, it shows the 38, but it does not show that fifth deposit. Uh, it doesn't show the fifth deposit. And for the third deposit, instead of 40,000, the bank says that deposit was 38,000. The bank says that deposit was 38,000. They give you interest income. So the bank is saying total deposits were 191,000. For the checks that cleared were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So checks 1 through 8 cleared, 9 and 10 did not clear. So for the bank statement, beginning balance is 0. They picked up 191,000 in deposits. They paid out 89,000 in checks and had a service charge of 1,000. And they said the balance was 101,000. Can you reconcile this check? So what would you do to do this reconciliation? That's how ExxonMobil is going to look.
Are we gonna start off with the company's beginning balance?
Okay. For the ending balance, and that was what?
Let me see, 119.
That's what it says, right? 119.
Yeah, checkbook balance 119.
Then you're going to come in and add unrecorded deposit, that interest income. So you're doing the same thing, except you got to go in here and get it. As I'm not telling you directly, but you have what the company's records look like, and you have what the bank statement shows. So in this one, you just got to find out. the you had your service charge of 1,000, so you picked that up. Then you had that deposit error of 2,000. That is, you said the deposit was 40,000, but the bank only got 38,000. So what do you think ExxonMobil is going to say when they see that?
I mean, they just have to correct it.
And what else would they do? They will want to make sure
You said, what else would they do?
they kind of want to be sure that 40,000 didn't come in and the employee only deposited 38.
Yeah.
They
They,
would check on that. So Jasmine, what would we do for the bank statement reconciliation?
Mm, mm,
Let's see, this is
bank statement. I'm trying to get back to it.
so it showed deposit of 191,000, right? Checks paid
Mm-hmm.
of 89, service charge, so then the balance was 101. So the bank's gonna start where? With that 101.
No, 1,000. 101,000.
Right? Then that deposit in transit, remember, they didn't get that that last deposit in January. That 50,000, they didn't get that in time. So you would add that back. Then those two checks that didn't clear, you're going to subtract those and get 119,000. So was that what we had on the other one?
yes, it was 100.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Dr. Boyd. Yes. Okay. Bye. So that's just one to look at. Just wanted to introduce you to that one. Now, what else did we work on last time? Statement of cash flow. And we talked about in the statement of cash flow that there are operating activities, investing activities, and financing activities. All companies are involved. And so this is a special statement where we see whether or not cash, the company's cash is increasing from what originally was put in, and if it's increasing through earnings. So that's what we're concerned with. So that's always our goal. Did the cash go up, and then did it get there through earnings? There are three parts to the cash flow statement: operations, investments, financing, and then we have the change in cash. Operations for a company is like your salary. That's where the cash is supposed to come from. So all of the revenues, less expenses, and current asset purchases are in operations. This needs to be positive, just like of you personally. You need enough salary so you can pay all your bills, buy your food and things like that. A company has to have enough cash. That needs to be positive. Then a good company for investments is going to be negative because they are investing more money in the company. And then for financing, because we pay dividends here and because we pay back debt, we want that to be negative. So for you personally, you lack a salary to buy more assets and pay off your student loans. When we get ready to prepare the statement, we're only using transactions 1 through 11A. Those are the only transactions that go on the statement of cash flow. And our goal is still to see how much cash we have coming in operations, how much we're paying out in operations, and was there a positive cash flow in operations. In investments, we're concerned with, okay, did we buy things? And we hope that this is negative. We hope part 2 is negative. Part 3 is financing, where did the cash come from and where did it go? Then we get to our change in cash flow. So we have this example, and this is your homework problem that's in the end. So that's your homework problem that you work on to turn in next tab. Now, one of the things we have to have is, okay, where do these journal entries go? Where do these journal entries go? And so here we have this column that I put in. And when we issue common stock, let's go in part 3. That is, you didn't earn any money. That's just telling you how you financing your business. And then we said if it was cash revenue received, it would be in part 1. If we collected receivables, part 1. It was income in advance, part 1. If we borrowed money, part 1, if it's a short-term loan, part 2, 3, if it's a long-term loan. If we sell a non-current asset, we're going to put that in part 2. We do not want a company to be selling off long-term assets. Macy's selling its stores, and we're thinking that they have an operating money. For the cash transaction, if we purchase an asset, if it's a short-term asset, current asset, it goes in part 1. If it's a long-term asset, it goes in part 2. Liability is the same way. If you pay a current liability, it goes in part 1. Long-term in part 3. Payment of expenses, part 1. Payment of a dividend is part 3. Cash refunds are part 1. Purchase of treasury stock is where we buy back some of our stock is part 3. And so this little column that we added for sources and uses tells us if that transaction occurred, where it's going to go on the template. We have part 1 of the template, cash from operations. Part 2, cash from investments. Part 3, cash flows from financing. We're going to add up the sources and uses and come up with the net cash flow in each area. And we're going to see if it holds that we have a positive amount in operation. If you don't, there's a problem. We want this to be negative, and we know that if it's not negative, it's not going to be recurring. We don't have these recurring assets here. And we're hoping that we aren't borrowing a lot of money, but we're paying off debt. Okay, so let's look at this problem, and I've changed it a little bit. and this is in course content now, but what I've done with this problem is say journal entry number, the type, and its location on the statement of cash flow. So I'm gonna have you all work on this, but we'll do the first one together. Excuse me a second. Hello? You probably need to dial 7. No problem. Okay, so when we contribute cash to begin a business, what type is that? That's type. Type what? Journal entry type what? The first one you learned.
2.
No, that wasn't the first one you learned.
Type 1.
You learned 1. Okay. And where does a type 1 go on the statement of cash flow? Part 1, 2, or 3?
Part 3.
3.
3. Okay. So, and because it's a source of cash, and anytime we have a source of cash, it's going to be on the source side. And if we pay cash out, it's going to be on the use side. So all of these items up here are going to be on the source side, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. All of these items are going to be on the use side, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. So we said then that as we work this problem, given that how that looks, when we get ready to work the problem, for journal entry number 1, I have the number here. So as journal entry 1, that's a type 1. So this is a type 1. Why don't you jump all the way back here? So this is type 1, and we're going to put in that source column the amount, which is what, $200. Okay. Do we see that?
Yes.
So we got to do that for each transaction. What we're going to do for the second transaction? What type is it? What type do we have?
Type 7.
Purchase inventory on account.
No. Type 12.
Type 12. What we're going to do? Not 1 through 11. So we strike it. So these problems are good to go back and review journal entry types and everything. But anything outside of 11 is not going on the statement of cash flow. So I want you all to go ahead and do 3, 4, and 5. So I've done 1 and 2. I want you all to do 3, 4, and 5. You identify the type, and you have this now in course content. Then you're identifying the location on the statement. Is it part 1, 2, or 3? And of course, whether it's a source or a use. Any question?
What page is this on the journal entries where it's giving us the problem?
Let's see, that's on page 16 of this insert.
Okay.
But I also redid it this way, and this is another insert I put in.
Okay.
So it'd be a little more organized for you to put the type and the location. So do you see that insert?
Mm,
If not, you can just put those items here.
okay.
But go ahead and do the next three. Okay, how we coming? What do we do with number 3? What's our type?
2.
Is it a type 6 for number 3? Or
6,
is it
cash sale.
Is it
or is
2?
it a type 2?
Type 2. So we don't worry about this part because cash wasn't involved. So we're going to take the 1200 and what are we going to do?
Debit it to
These number no one. I thought I had these number. So for these numbers look like they are. I'm changing as I go through. So this is journal entry number 3. And so you should have said that that was a type 2. Then you should have put the amount of the cash sale 1200 here. What are we doing for number 4?
type
What's our
15.
type?
15.
It's 15. So what we're going to do,
Strike it out.
and these purchases would have been 12. So we're going to, strike that one out. The number 5,
A type 7?
type 7. The part of the statement does the type 7 go on?
You strike it out.
Which one?
For 7, it's a U, so we strike it out, right? Oh, it says it could be a
No.
1 or a 2. It could be 1 or a 2. So it consists.
Since it's a current
Cash
asset, it'll be a
off.
1. So we take that 100. So this is transaction number 5. So we say that's type 7,
Mm-hmm.
and we would put the supplies here 100. Next, we have paid salaries of 200. What type is that?
Is it expense
Is it 8?
or is it
9 is the payment of an
it's
expense, and that's also going to go in what? Part 1.
that one?
So that's number. So that's the type, and the amount is $200. Then we come to number 7, where we purchase equipment costing 600, paying 200 down, and signing a note for the balance. So what we're going to say here is that we have 2 things occurring. We buying equipment for $600. That's important. And so, and that's a long-term asset. So the 600 part of it is a type 7. Long-term asset that's going to go in part 2. So we're going to put So this is journal entry 7. It's a U, so we over here on the U side. And so it's gonna be a 7 for $300. Excuse me, $600. Then, and on long-term assets, well, I always like to know the original cost. The long-term note is also going to be down here, but it's going to be a source of cash. So the type would be 6, where we borrow money. Notice that we have a $600 loan, a $400 note. We get back to this 200 cash, so we do get back to 200 in cash. But we're showing it how much did the item cost, how much money did we borrow to buy it. The difference is that 200 in cash. So let's think about that one a little bit. Paid on accounts payable 700. What's our type?
Is it 8?
That's a type 8. What part is going to go in?
It's gonna go in, it says 1 or 3. So 1.
It's going to go in part 1. And so that's journal entry 8. That's a type 8. And we're going to put $700 there. So we're going to the transaction, but they have to be cash transaction. Collections of account receivable. What's our type here? That's that old type 3, right?
Yes, 3.
And that's going to be in part 1 of the statement. Number 9. Put the $500 here. Paid on long-term note $200. So that's a type 8. But because it's long-term, it's going to go in part 3. So we're going to go to part 3 for number 10. And we're going to say that was a type 8. We're going to put $200 here. Okay, then we get paid dividend. What's our type here? It's type 10. That's going to go where? Part 3 also. So that's so that is number 11. That's our type 10. And the amount was 100. Supplies on hand at the end of the year. That's an AJE, right? What's that type number? I think that is 12. I think that's 13, but it's not within our group. So we're simply going to strike it. Depreciation, I think that's a type 14, not in our group. So we're going to strike it also. And then on number 14, it said we sold equipment for $250, and it cost us $250 for 100. Okay, so sale of a non-current asset. Wait a minute, let me see my types. That's a
That's a
6.
type 6.
That's a 6. And you bought this.
Part 2.
We had the 7, but the other part is the note part of this. Should have been 5. I don't know if I used 5 or not on that statement. Yeah, this should have been a type 5. So we're not worried about the cost. Let me just strike that part out. So that's going to leave us with, this would be journal entry number 14. And that's a type 6. And so the amount that we got was 100. So let's look at what we're going to do. We're going to add up all the sources, $1,250,000, and we have the sources are 1,700. The uses, we add them up, they are 1,000. So therefore, in part 1, we have 700 in sources. That is the net change, the net source was 700. So 1,700 came in, 1,000 was out. In part 2, we have 100. We have 600. So our net change here is a minus 500. Our uses exceeded our sources. Then in part 3, we had 600 in sources. We had 300 in uses. So our net change was 300. So the total change in cash is 700 minus 500 plus 300. I think that should be equal to 500. So this statement is a little different, but what it tells us is how much money we had in operations. This has to be positive. If a company has a negative operation, they're in trouble. That's just like you not having any salary. So suppose, you know, you decided to sell your car, borrow some money, you go to Las Vegas and you lose everything. So when you come back, you don't have any way to get to work, so you no longer will have the salary. So if a company don't have cash in operation, it's problematic. It's like if you don't have a salary. You know, in general, that's problematic. We like to see companies expand, and we would prefer that they're paying off debt. Are there any questions? So here's your homework problem, number 21. So work that problem, and I'll have a place for you to turn it in. So that'll be a homework assignment. Got it? So
Yes, ma'am. Number 21,
Yes,
or
ma'am.
say what now?
they just work number 21?
If 4 times 3. So it should be in the handout that you have.
Okay.
So what it's going to do is that it's going to help you to look at journal entries and everything and get a sense. So you can set them up a number of ways, but you remember the spreadsheet you had?
Yes, yes.
So pull up that spreadsheet right quick if you can. Let me see if I can pull it up. So if you will remember on the spreadsheet, see if I can get it over some, come over some. So on journal entries, once you make the journal entries, you had this part, once you do your type, cash flow statement location. So you should make all of those journal entries here, putting it, so you're making the journal entries, you're putting the type down, and then you're putting whether it's on the cash flow statement or not. Then you have a sheet in there where you would then work the problem. So that's a statement of cash flow. That's an additional sheet. So this is what you should put the problem on. Got it?
Got it.
Okay. So you all have a good Easter break. And I think that we actually do not have class on Tuesday. I don't know if you all knew that or not.
No, I didn't know that. Okay.
Tuesday is supposed to be a University Mental Health Day.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
all the students on campus knew about this. They let me know. They started letting me know last Tuesday.
Okay.
They started letting me know, Dr. Boyd, you do know. Okay. So anyway, nice little break into action. And so finish this up. And then after that, we will be moving to inventories. We'll be moving to inventory.
So for the homework, we're just doing number 21, correct?
You do all of them.
Yeah. This one here, 1 through 21.
1 through
Same
21. Okay.
study problem 4-3 is in the handout. It's in Blackboard. And I'll put it in assignment so you can turn it in. So you got a long time.
Okay, Dr. Boyd, I have a really quick question. Just a general question. For homework, um, I was kind of unsure about your policy for late assignments. So are you not accepting late work, or you prefer us to turn it in late? Like
No,
if we're not.
well, generally you only get one late every grading period, and so I prefer that it's in on time. And once the grading period is over, then I don't accept late. So I don't want late for period 1 and the midterm period. Uh, even though at this point, I'll get the midterm grades out. So I just finished those problems, grading those. But in general, no, you're not, especially when we've gone over the problem. So sometimes we got a long problem, and that's one thing. But if we've gone over the problem in class and you send it in late, then that's a no-no. Then I have some people who having problems with everything will the next day send me in a perfectly worked out problem. Okay, so they get somebody to send it to them. So that's problematic, and they shouldn't be getting a perfect grade when they really just got somebody to send them their homework and then they turn it in late. So latest
Because I know
problem.
my biggest problem is I kind of like move slow when I'm trying to do the journal entries and stuff, and so it kind of becomes a time issue.
You got a
So
week.
I was just trying to make sure.
You got a week.
Okay.
It's not due until next Thursday.
Okay.
Anything else? Well, you all have a good one, good little break, and I will see you all next Thursday.
You too. Thank you.
All right, and I'll try to get
Thank
these
you.
recordings up. You're welcome.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.